Hey Jennifer, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, of course. Of
You know,
course.
for those people who are listening and not watching the video, Jennifer's wearing her Thomas University track and field t-shirt representing. So, can you just talk about your process or how you made it to Thomas, how you made that choice as
Uh
an athlete?
yeah, so it wasn't really much of a big jump for me because Thomas University is actually in the hometown that I grew up in, Thomasville, Georgia. We're like 30, 45 minutes away from the Tallahassee, Florida. So um when I was a freshman in high school, I actually was on the basketball team. I literally didn't really have a passion for track because when I was a freshman in high school, the word track kind of just scared me a little bit because the first thing you think about with track is you're running and stuff like that. So I wasn't really too like one of those athletes that were like crazy about the whole conditioning part about track and field and stuff like that. And I played basketball my freshman year through my sophomore year. Just some things that just kind of happened and stuff like that. So I just decided to do track. I was literally at basketball practice one day, and the assistant coach for our track and field team back at Central, that's the school I went to, Thomas
Hmm.
County Central High School. She literally just saw me throw a basketball one day, and she pulled me away from practice, and she was like, "Have you ever thought about trying out track?" I said, "No, because I don't want to run." She was like, "Oh no, I'm not gonna have you. I'm not gonna have you run. I'm gonna have you throw." I was like, "Okay, why not try it?" So I literally went out there to tryouts after our season ended and stuff like that for basketball, and I picked up the implement, which is a discus. It's the flat metal plate,
Sure.
and then you have the shot put the big ball, and I literally threw it. I had no idea what I was doing, and I picked it up and I threw it, and it went barely far. So I was like, okay, let me just go ahead and keep going with it. So I went to my first meet, my very first meet, my sophomore year. It was at Childs High School. So it's like as soon as you get into Tallahassee, it's like the first school on the right as soon as you get in. And
Hmm.
I remember I threw my very first measurement was like 81 feet as somebody that was totally inexperienced to what she was doing. So I was just getting like a lot of positive feedback about, how strong I am. And I think it was just a good move for me to be a thrower. Like I said, I didn't really have too much knowledge on throwing at all. All I knew that track was pretty much just a bunch of people wearing spikes running around a circle for like hours and hours and hours. I knew about the field area, but I didn't know like they had throwing and like how it worked and stuff
Sure.
like that. So, like I said, I started my sophomore year and I was actually region champ my sophomore year, which was kind of crazy.
Your first season?
Yeah, my first season
Wow,
I was region champ. Unfortunately, I
that's
didn't make it
wild.
to state, but I made it all the way to sectionals. So I was pretty proud of myself and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? Why not try to go for a scholarship? Why not, you know, get out my comfort zone of, having the dreams of being a basketball player and try something new. So that's what I decided to do. I just signed up for a recruiting website and, I just started getting offers left and right. And when I was getting recruited, all the offers that I had, they were like so far away. Like Woodruff University, they recruited me. William Penn, they recruited me. A lot of like schools that were like out there, like 18, 20 hours away, they were recruiting me, and they were full rides. And at the time, I was just a young kid looking to have an opportunity to play at the collegiate level, and I don't think I was mentally, physically, and financially ready to move out so far.
Hmm.
So, when I heard about Thomas University starting a track and field program, my coach told me about it. I honestly told him, I was like, it's literally my last option. Like, I didn't want to, be stuck at home when I already had to be home for 4 years straight back in high school and stuff like that. So I told him, let's just make that my last option. So throughout my junior year and senior year, I kind of exercised my options and stuff like that. And the more offers that I got, the further away that they went and stuff like that. And when I talked to the former head coach that was there at the time, he offered me and stuff like that. I went on a tour and I just loved the campus. Like, it was so beautiful for it to be a very small school. It's so amazing. And
Hmm.
when he told me, I could make history, that kind of just lit up a light bulb in my head. I was like, this is the
Interesting.
time that I can like make something for myself, make people know like who I am and stuff like that. So when I told my parents about it, they were so excited, especially my dad. when I told him I had other offers, of course he was supportive and stuff like that. But when I told him that I got offered by Thomas University, he could not stop asking me about, hey, when are you going to sign? Are you thinking about, going to this school? And I knew with the excitement on his face, it was probably the right move for me to just go to TU right now. And I'm glad I did. So, I signed my letter of intent back in 2019. I haven't looked back, and
Wow.
yeah, it was incredible. So I was pretty much like one of the first signees for Thomas University track and field program. I did a little bit of cross country in my time, but I'm more on the track and field side as a thrower and stuff like that. So right now, just kind of like looking, fast forward into this upcoming year. I currently hold all the throwing records. All I hold the shot put, discus, javelin, and hammer record for outdoor, and then we just started an indoor season last year, and I currently hold those records as well. So I hold a total of 6 school records in total.
Wow.
By the way, we're in the Sun Conference. They're made of like Georgia and Florida schools. So we have like Southeastern University, Kaiser University, Weber
Mhm.
International, Warner University, USCB, St. Thomas, Florida
Yeah.
Memorial. So we have really, really good competition. And we've been in the Sun Conference for 4 years now. So we just started an indoor season last year, and I was all Sun Conference in the shot put. So
Wow.
that was pretty
That's
amazing.
pretty cool.
Yeah. So I made the all Sun Conference team my first year for our outdoor season. So that was pretty cool. I finished top 3 in the discus. And it's just I've been progressing all year, and with the coaching staff that I've been having throughout the years, they kind of just make it a lot more easier and fun to be around
Mhm.
this conference and be around this university as much as I've been. So
Sure.
it's definitely been a wild run so far, but I mean it's like with Thomas University being such a small school but in a really really competitive conference, it's amazing to say that I'm in the Sun Conference. I'm competing against like amazing athletes like Southeast.
Mm.
They're amazing. St. Thomas, they're amazing. They have people that try out for the Olympic trials, and to say that I compete against these athletes like every other
Mhm.
week,
That's
it's
that's great.
crazy. So
Is
I
that
love it.
so is Thomas, that's NAIA school?
Yes, we're NAIA Division One.
Okay.
So yeah,
Cool. So I mean, there's so much in what you just said, right? So I'm curious about all of that, right? To go back to the beginning, right? So when you said you threw 81 feet, was that the discus?
yes, that was a discus, and
Okay.
saying 81 feet right now, it does not seem crazy, but to the younger generation, like if they're in middle school or they're like first timers in high school, that might seem crazy to them. And I honestly thought it was crazy too. And I was one of those athletes that would progress almost every other meet, especially my senior year. One of the coaches just said, I had a season of PR, so like every meet I was progressing about a couple feet and stuff like that. So, I went from like 81 to like 94, 96, and I eventually got into the 100s. I had my fair chance at, state and stuff like that. My senior year, I finished ninth in 5A in Georgia. So that wasn't pretty bad. So I kind of ended my senior year on a good note, which is good. I PR'd twice. So I went from 113 feet to 115 feet. And with the discus is kind of hard to explain without showing you how it works, but I didn't have too much of the technique, so I was pretty much just out there
Right.
picking up the implement, just throwing it. And I'm very strong for what I was back in high school, so I was really just, they call it punching, so you kind of just literally sling it out there. You don't kind of rotate. So I mean, for me to be throwing it like literally punching it like 113 115 feet is crazy. So it was
Wow.
really crazy. Yeah.
Wow. So I mean, so what do you throw now in the discus, just out of curiosity?
127.
Right. So you've gone up 50 over 50% on your distance,
Yeah.
and you're a junior now
Yes,
in
I'm a junior.
college. So
Yes.
like in 5 or 6 years, you've gone over 50% increase. That's amazing, right? To think how much you, from the time you picked up that discus to where you're at now, it's like that's got to be a really great feeling. Not just because you're in college and you're competing against great athletes and you got a scholarship and all those things, but just from a personal perspective, to know that you've could do something really well just by doing it, and then continue to work at it and see this gradual improvement to the point where you're like a totally different athlete.
Yeah. And it kind of helps when you're building a program, especially when we started from scratch. You're
Yeah.
building a program, you're finding these athletes, across the nation that do what you do, and it helps when you have people that are a little bit more experienced than you coming into your freshman year and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
I've had teammates throughout the years that had more experience than me, and we definitely fed off each other's energy and stuff like that. And obviously, being a college athlete, if you're committed to your sport, if you're dedicated to it, obviously you're going to grow. You're going to have growing pains and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So, I've just watched a lot of YouTube. I've been around a lot of coaches that, are very familiar with throwing and stuff like that. And that kind of just helped me progress throughout the years. And obviously, being at a small school, but with an amazing staff when it comes to like athletic training, strength and
Mhm.
conditioning, our AD, those play a big part into
Sure.
that 50% increase that I've had throughout the years and stuff
Development,
like
right.
that. So, I don't, is it, now that you say it, it's kind of crazy to say, like, I've really progressed that much, because when I'm out
Yeah.
there throwing, it's like, oh, I PR. But when you put the numbers together, it's like, it's crazy to think, like, that's a big jump within,
It's a
3 or
huge
4 years.
jump.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
huge
Especially
jump.
where I came from, not being as experienced. Like, all I knew that you pick up this implement and you throw it. I don't know how to throw it, but I'm just going to go out in there and throw it in a bunch of.
Right.
So, as I've grown in this world with the throwing world and stuff like that, I've learned different techniques to see what works for me. And there's a lot of techniques out there, and everybody has their own technique that they learn from. And I try to, watch these other throwers when I'm at my
Mm.
meets and see what they do, ask questions and stuff like that. So I think,
Sure.
just being around them and, watching YouTube, going out to practice and stuff like that, learning new techniques have helped me progress over the years.
So you mentioned, when you started throwing in high school at a certain point, you signed up for a recruiting site. So I know a very little bit about track and field recruiting, but my understanding, which is very limited, probably very basic, more basic than it really is. But my understanding is that a lot of it has to do with just your performance metrics, right? Like if you're a runner, right? Like if you fall within a certain time range and you run the 200, like you're going to get looked at, right? Like coaches are looking just at the times. Like, so is
Exactly.
it the same way as a thrower? Like if you start inputting your data, your performances, and they see, oh, wow, this girl throws 81 feet, as a sophomore, like they're going to be like, hey, we're interested in her. Is that how it came
Yeah,
to
that's
be?
pretty much how it worked. I'm not gonna lie to you. I literally was just sitting at home one summer, and I was just scrolling through Facebook at the time, and I just saw this recruiting website, and I'm like, you know, at Central, we went to a lot of local meets, and
Mm-hmm.
with me being so inexperienced, there weren't a lot of coaches looking at me, so I just tried to find a way to kind of get my name out there and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And my coach, his name is Chad Ward. He's the son of Charlie Ward, the Heisman.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow, that's so interesting.
sees this, yeah, if he sees this, thank you for everything that you did, Coach Ward. But yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty cool. He's an amazing coach. I love him to death. But yeah, he told me about a couple coaches, and he kind of told me about the website. So I decided to sign
Mm-hmm.
up for it, and a year went by. I started putting my film in. I started putting my stats and stuff like that, and that's when I
Mhm.
started getting these invites to these camps and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
And I started just personally reaching out to coaches and stuff like that. So I think there's throughout the years there's a big increase on the way recruiting works as far as track and field.
Mm.
Because if you think about it with track and field and these other sports, it's hard for track and field to get actual film on themselves that's like good quality. Like with basketball, you're in
Right.
an arena, you can get that content versus if you're running, you're throwing and jumping, you got to go around this track. You got to find somebody to be at the throwing pit with you. You got to find somebody to be at the jumping pit for you to
Yeah.
get that content.
It's hectic.
Yeah, so shout out to all the track athletes out there that's getting film on them as much as they can. So, and like with the summer camps and the summer meets, it kind of helps too because that's like a big time for these
Mhm.
college coaches to recruit and stuff like that. So, I just try to stay on that recruiting website as much as I can throughout my recruiting process to update my stats every meet that I PR'd in and stuff like that. So I think it kind of worked out in my favor at the end.
Sure. So it sounded like, I mean, it sounded like, I mean, you said pretty plainly that, Thomas was sort of your last option. So when you were going through the process, like what were some of the things that were really important to you when you were looking for a school?
Honestly, I was just at the time, me being a 17-year, 18-year-old kid, just I was honestly just looking for somebody to just take a chance on me because I wasn't one of those players on our team that was like an all-star, like, oh, she's like a
Mhm.
D1 athlete, because we had those on my team at the time. I was just like your average athlete on a track and field team throwing.
Mhm.
So, my numbers weren't that crazy back then, even though it may seem crazy as I was throwing 81 feet as a sophomore. But I was really just looking for a home that wanted to take a chance on me. I didn't want to feel like a number in the classroom. I didn't want to
Mhm.
just feel like a number on somebody's roster. So I was
Mhm.
looking for a place that treated me like family. I felt like I was comfortable enough to go to just not my track and field coaches, but to the other coaches and my AD and my athletic trainer about anything, even my professors. And with the schools that recruited me, they were so far away. I wasn't able to go out there and visit their campus. I can only look at their website and the virtual tours at the time,
Mhm.
and phone calls. And granted, it was enough back then, but after I got off the phone with them, I had to really think deep about, like, what am I really getting myself into? Am I gonna go somewhere where I have to kind of start from square one, as far as like finding a car, making new friends and stuff like that. And that was really a big thing for me. I didn't want to be so far away from home where I was struggling to kind of make ends meet for myself personally. So when
Mhm.
I heard about Thomas University, building a track and field program, one, it was an opportunity for me to write my name in the history books. That was a really big thing for me, to write my name in the history books and to make an impact at Thomas University. Two, the professors, when I heard about the way that they operate, they take their time with you. They're very friendly. That kind of drew me into,
Mhm.
and just like the small environment that Thomas University has, it kind of drew me in a lot. Because when I went on my tour, I met some of the coaches, and they didn't even know who I am, but they greeted me like they've known me for years, and I'm like, okay, this. I feel like I can just sit back and chill without feeling like so
Right.
stressed out because I'm
You
an
could be
athlete.
yourself.
Yeah, that was really huge for me. So that definitely played a lot into it. Just having that family oriented campus style.
Yeah. I mean, when I heard you a little bit before, like I could just see the smile on your face about like the way you feel about where you're at, like at Thomas, like the situation you're in. You could tell that you're genuinely like happy about the way things have worked out, which is great because it's not, to your point, it's not always, it doesn't always work out that way for a lot of athletes, right? They may go away from home, they may be homesick, they may not be playing as much as they want to play, and then that becomes a source of stress, not a source of joy,
Right.
and so it sounds like you found a really good fit for you, but I have to imagine that along the way there have been some challenges. So like when you went from high school to college, what did that look like for you? Like was it, what were some of the challenges maybe that you faced when you got on campus?
Um, Honestly, it was probably more of the adjustment from waking up at 8 in the morning, going to practice at 3 in the afternoon, and being done. And then when I got into college, I would get up at 9:30 in the morning to go to class, and then at 1:45, I would have to get dressed for a 2 p.m. practice, and then have weights right after, and then recovery in the training room and stuff like that, and then with my job and stuff like that. And I will say another
Mhm.
thing: what drove me into TU was my job,
Yep.
because I think if I told you earlier when we first talked that
Mhm.
I was literally still in high school, I hadn't graduated or anything. And the AD at the time, Mike Lee, Mr. Lee, he called me. We got on the phone because my teacher, Mr. Young, his name is Randy Young.
Mhm.
He runs the broadcasting program over there at Central. And when I told him that I was signed to TU, he told me about the sports information department that they had at TU. And he was like, you should give Mr. Lee a call and see what he can do for you. So I called him, and I introduced myself, and I told him what I do at Central, and he
Mhm.
did not hesitate to say, "Hey, I want you here. I want you here. What do we have to do to get you here?" And at that point, I knew that that was literally the school for me, because he did not know who I was. He just trusted the people that we had connections with,
Yeah.
believe in the work ethic and stuff like that. So
Well,
you
yeah,
know?
but I think, I think you're probably, not giving yourself enough credit because when you're a high school senior and you're reaching out to somebody like that in a position of authority, basically asking for a job before you even got on campus, like that shows a lot of initiative, which I think is something I hear from a lot of coaches in general in the recruiting processes. Like, is this young person invested in their own recruiting? Are they sending the emails? Are they reaching out? Are they following up? Like, what are they doing to want to be here? And the fact that you picked up the phone and called, you called this person and said, "Hey, like, I want to come there. Like, I'm looking for something to do." Like, that's got to go a long way because usually they're probably chasing kids around to get them to come, just get to show up to work, you know?
No, and I definitely say, when I got the job opportunity, I honestly did not know like how I was gonna balance being a student athlete
Sure.
and having my job, because with my job is you're pretty much, you got to be at every game day. You got to be behind the scenes, putting in stats, writing articles, taking pictures, doing videos, setting up a live stream.
Wow.
So I had to figure out through that summer that I graduated, the that summer where I graduated and stuff like that, before the fall started, before I moved in. I had to figure out how am I going to balance being a student athlete and doing what I do. And I realized that I had to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I had to learn growing pains and stuff like that. And when I moved in and we started practicing, I started getting my routine and stuff like that. It wasn't really a hard transition for me, because the AD at the time, he made me feel like, if I needed anything, if you're struggling, just let me know, and I got your back and stuff like that. And I
Mhm.
think that kind of drew me in more to saying yes to the job opportunity and stuff like that. So I would say for like any athlete that's in the process of their recruiting, you got to make yourself known. You can't depend on
Yes.
you know seeing if there's going to be like coaches in the stand at your track meet, because they might not be. They might be having their own practice. They might be at their own meets at the time and stuff like that. So you have to make an effort to put yourself out there in
Mm,
in the collegiate world.
sure.
It doesn't hurt to email a coach. It doesn't hurt to send out a letter. It doesn't hurt to text a coach saying like, "This is who I am. This is what I have to offer to you. What can we work out?" And that goes a long way if you do it the
It
right way.
does. And
And
I had,
I
yeah, I had somebody on my podcast who plays soccer. Female plays soccer in college, and she tells a story about how like she was just relentless in terms of following up because she wanted to play at this one school, and she talks about like how the last time she called the
Mhm.
coach offered her a scholarship,
Right.
right, to this like dream school of hers because like you're putting yourself basically at the top of the pile, right? There's so many recruits, so many recruits. There's so many, like, they probably get hundreds of emails, hundreds of calls. There's so many kids on the radar. Like, if you're not making yourself, to your point, stand out as a person about, like, this is what I really want, this is what's important to me, then you're just going to be like everybody else. So, unless you're like just an unreal athlete that everybody wants to have you, sort of a 5-star athlete, you want to call it that, it's kind of the way we think it in men's sports anyway. Unless you're that, then, you're just like everybody else and you got to set yourself apart. And it sounds like you did that. Now, I know that when we talked the last time, I got the impression that you have some really long days there at Thomas between training and working and school and all those other things. Can you just talk about like a little bit more detail about like what a day in your life looks like?
Yeah, so I could actually just take you through a breakdown of, how I start my day. So I start my day about 5:30 every morning. I eat breakfast and I go work out at the gym downtown. Here in Thomasville, it's called Koja Athletics, which is owned by Danny Copeland. He played for the Kansas City Chiefs back in his time. He won a Super Bowl with them and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And it's an amazing gym. It's really amazing. So I go there from like 6 to like 6:45, and then I go back home. I kind of get dressed, stretch. I try to take a power nap before I go to class around like 9:30. So I'm in class from like 9:30 to maybe 12:45, maybe 1:45, just depending on the day that I have my classes. And then at 2 o'clock, I'm at practice from 2 to 4. That's when I have my track practice. And then from like
Hmm.
4 to 5, I have weights twice a week. So once I'm done with weights, let's just say we're in the fall season. That's my schedule from like 2 to 5. I'm within practice and weight training. Once I get done with weight training, we might have a basketball game that starts at like 5:30 for women's basketball. I would have to, literally run from the weight room to my dorm room, take a shower, get dressed for work, and then head to the gym, set up for our live stream, make sure everybody has their rosters,
Mhm.
um, all that good stuff. And then I would be there from like 5:30 till like 11 o'clock at night because
Wow.
with college they have double headers. So the way our double headers work is from like 5:30 for women and then 7:30 for the men.
Man.
And there's stuff that you got to do after as far as making sure all the coaches have their box scores, making sure our stat guy has the correct stats and stuff like that. We do like post game interviews, so I'm making sure these athletes go where they need to go if we need them for any post game stuff.
Uh-huh.
You know, and I'm more on the creative content side when it comes to our game days and stuff. So I'm the one that's capturing all the highlights in the picture. So I have to, find somewhere after the games are done, put that on my computer, put a quick highlight together and put that on social media. And I have to send our director of athletic communications an article photo so he can write the articles and stuff like that. And then by the time that's done, it's probably maybe 11 o'clock, maybe, and I'm asleep by like 11:30, and then I start my day again at 5, and I just repeat 7 days straight. Now I will say on Sundays I kind of take like a mental day to kind of get my work done for school and any extra pieces that I need for work and stuff like that. So with me, it's kind of like, I'm all work mode. I'm all track
I
and
could
field
tell.
mode. I'm not the type to go party and, hang
Yeah.
out on a Saturday night, because I just got too much going on to do that. And I take a lot of pride in my work. I try to present myself in a very professional way and stuff like that, because that goes a long way, especially with me being in the sports profession. You
Mhm.
got to kind of represent yourself in a right way if you're gonna wear your logo and stuff like that. So, my days go like they're like
Yeah.
day every day. And, I have the opportunity to travel with some of our teams. So like with women's basketball, there's been times where, I would go to class from like 9:30 to like 12. And then we'll be on the road at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and don't get back to like 3 in the morning because we just had a 5 hour road trip, and then I
Wow.
would be up at like 5 in the morning to go on to work out, because even though I might have long days, I don't want to break my routine as far as me being an athlete.
Yes.
I can't do that.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a really a lot of good stuff in there, right? Like one is like it's a very mature approach for somebody who's 21 years old, to look at it as like this is my responsibility. I take pride in it. Like I feel the need to put this front and center because not everyone's going to do that, right? And not
Right,
everyone's working the job like you're working, right? They're
right.
student athlete, and then they're done at 5 o'clock, and then they just do whatever they do. Um, but just the thing that I think about is like if you're so busy like that? Like, do you feel like you're getting this is such a simple question, but I'm interested, so I'm gonna ask it. Do you feel like you get enough sleep?
Yes, I do. I definitely make sure I get like 8 hours of sleep. So like
Okay.
even if I have to like push my times back depending on what day it is, I would definitely do that.
Okay.
Because like I do get 6 hours of sleep. I will say, even though if I go to bed at like 11, I get up by like 5:30. I think that's roughly around 5 to 6, and then once I get done working out, I tend to have like at least an hour or two to myself to get that power nap in. So I might not
Yeah.
hit the whole 8 hours like
Right,
from
in
like
one
start
in
to
one
finish,
shot, yeah.
but I'll get
I
that eight
know it.
hours somewhere somehow.
Right.
So I think especially as an athlete, sleep is definitely important,
Yeah,
and I
it's
think a lot
huge.
of athletes don't realize that it makes a big difference in your performance in the way that you go about your day. Like if I don't get at least like 6 hours of sleep, I cannot properly function. And I tell everybody that I'm like, listen, I have not got 6 hours of sleep. So if you need me, I'm probably gonna be asleep. And as soon as I wake up, I'm
I'll take
starting
care of
my
it.
day. So, sleep is important in my life. Recovery is important in my life. Eating healthy is important in my life. So, and just not try to go off topic or anything, but last year I kind of went through a weight loss phase. I was pretty big, with throwers. We're really big people. We're
Yeah,
really big people,
sure.
so I was weighing about like 177 back in May, and I just decided to make a life change. Like it was, my weight was really hindering me as an athlete and just a person overall. Like I went through a big mental block because back then I did suffer through anxiety and depression and stuff like that, just because the whole being a college athlete and dealing with what we have
Sure.
to deal with and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So um, I decided to join Koja Athletics, and I've been a member of Koja Athletics for roughly 2 years now. And I kind of told Danny, one of my trainers, I said, "Listen, this summer I'm all go mode. I want to change my life. I want to, change how I go about my day because the way I performed, the year prior to that, I did not. It was terrible. Even though I finished top three in the conference for discus, throughout the season I was not pleased how I did, and I was like, something has to change. And at the time, I didn't know what, and I realized maybe if I lose weight and change my mindset, things will change. So last year I lost 45 pounds in 2 months, and I just haven't looked back then. And the biggest thing that my trainer told me, he was like, find a routine, find something that works for you, whether that's what you eat throughout the day, how many mental breaks that you take throughout the day. Find something that works for you, find your routine. And that's
Mhm.
what I kind of did. And since then I've just been more happier in life. You could tell that I've been growing a lot, and it's definitely been showing a lot of improvement in the way I train, the way that I am as an athlete, and the way that I am in the office for my job, and
Mhm.
just being a person overall. So
Sure. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, there's obviously a lot to that. Yeah, I mean, listen, what you've described is really normal, right? You have a lot of responsibility. Sometimes, things just kind of go the way they go until you get to a point where you feel like I need to make a change. So when you mentioned sort of the anxiety and depression, like what was that? Like, what would you say that was related to? Was it related to performance, to your body image, to something else, just the stress of life? Like, what was going on there?
honestly, it was just probably just the stress of life. Like,
Yeah.
I think when I was bigger, I didn't really have too much confidence in myself. Um, I just, yeah, I just didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. And with my job, it can kind of be a little stressful and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
with me having long days, we're all human at the end of the day. We all deserve our mental breakdowns here and there. So being a college athlete, dealing with what I have to deal with, I hold myself to really high standards.
Mhm.
I put a lot of pressure on myself. So when I'm not performing to the best of my abilities, whether that's in the
Mhm.
circle or in the office, it takes a toll on me and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I just think that's just kind of trying to find like who I am as a person. That kind of had a lot to do with you know my anxiety and depression and stuff like that. So yeah.
Ta Well, I mean, it certainly takes a lot of courage to talk about that openly. I've been through those struggles myself, so I understand that it's really hard. But I think what I'm hearing you say is you're somebody now who's really, more in tune with who you want to be as a person,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
You're living the life that you want to live, which is really leading to feeling better about everything that you're doing. And
Right.
and I guess I'm curious, I mean, certainly there's a stereotype, I guess is the right word, right? Like for throwers, right? If you see a stereotypical thrower, they're just like really big and thick and muscular. And that causes them obviously to have the power to throw the implement a long distance. So like, what effect has your body change, your weight loss, composition change, like what effect has it had on your performance, if any?
Honestly, if anything, it didn't hurt me at all. It actually helped. Because I tell people this all the time. You don't have to be big to throw. It doesn't
Mhm.
come within the stomach. It comes within the legs. Throwing is all about the legs. If you
Mhm.
got you got strong legs, you got a good technique. That's all you need to throw. You don't have to be weighing 200 pounds to be throwing. Like
Mhm.
there's um American Olympians, Valerie, she weighs like probably like 170, and she literally holds a record for America, and she's small. And I've got beaten by people that were smaller than me when I was big. So I don't even think like
Mhm.
body weight has anything to do with throwing. It's
Mhm.
more of if you're strong enough in the legs and the hips and you have
Mhm.
the endurance and the strength to throw an implement, you can throw it. Anybody can throw an
Mhm.
implement if you have the proper technique and the right strength training.
Yeah. And I think the other and you referenced this before, it may be in a little bit different context, but I think what I'm also hearing you say is, like this is about like developing your whole person, right? Like it's not just the performance on the track because right, like what you said is very common, right? I see it. I work with a lot of different athletes, track athletes included. When we're not performing up to our ability, it really saps the way we feel about ourselves because we feel like we're putting in all this work, we should be doing better, and we're really hard on ourselves, which is really stressful, right? And that carries over into other areas of your life. What it
Mhm.
sounds like is you really found like this is what I want to be, and like in terms of the way you feel about yourself physically, right? You probably feel healthier, you feel stronger, you feel have more confidence about yourself in general. That carries over onto the track, and it sounds like that's exactly what you did. The other
Mhm.
thing I heard you say before is just like you've talked about all these different people in your life, like your coaches, the people in the program, like who are helping you develop as a person. Can you talk about their role in sort of that change or just your development in general?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I've been at Thomas University for 4 years, and there's never been a day where I woke up one morning, or I went to practice one day, or I went to class one day, and I literally just dreaded being there. I've never had that experience since I've been at
Mhm.
TU. I've never had the thoughts in the back of my head that I really hate it here. I want to transfer. I literally wake up every day saying I'm glad to be a
Mhm.
Nighthawk, literally, and I tell people that all the time. I'm glad to be at Thomas University. I'm glad to be a Nighthawk. I
Mhm.
wear the green and white with pride, and a lot of that has to do with the people that I'm around every day, as far as the AD and our softball coach and our
Mhm.
flag football coach, our swimming coach, all the coaches there. Even my boss, he plays a big role into what I do and stuff like that.
Mhm.
With him, it's just not all about work. He cares about what I do in the classroom. He cares about what I do as an athlete and stuff like that. And that really makes me feel like I matter. And like I told you before, when I was looking for a school, I just wanted to go somewhere where I felt like what I was doing was important to them. I just didn't want to feel like I'm filling another number on their roster to get them to a
Mhm.
championship. And that's not how I feel at TU. I feel like what I do for my job and what I do as an athlete and what I do for the school as a person, they enjoy that. They enjoy being around me. And, we just got a football team. It's a military transition football team. So it's pretty much a program for kids that want to be in the service and play football as well, or veterans that want to play football and stuff like that when they're retired. And I just met these coaches, and I feel like I've been knowing them for years.
Mhm.
That's just how comfortable I am being around them, just talking about life
Mhm.
in general, whether it's about work or what do I have going on for the week, or what you're going to be doing for practice and stuff like that. So I feel like any of the coaches, I can just sit down and just talk to them, or go to their practice and just have a conversation outside of sports. And
Mhm.
I think that's a really big thing for athletics, and these athletes in high school, even in college. You got to find somewhere where you don't have to always be serious. Like, I'm a serious person when it comes to track and field and work. But there's times where you can just go to, if you're a softball player, there's times where you can go to a basketball game and just hang out with those other athletes and stuff like that, and make friends, and just be involved in the community and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
you know, TU, they're really big on that and stuff like that. So I'm just glad that I'm at a school where I can
Mhm.
just talk to people that I'm not around every day, but when they do see me, it's like, I've been knowing them for years, even though I've only known them for 4 years and stuff like that. So I really just thank them for always being by my side when I needed somebody to talk to, just being there supporting me, whether it was for track or whether it was in the classroom, because they do care about me. They always ask me,
Mhm.
what you got going on in the classroom? How's your grades? How are you doing? How did you do last weekend at your track meet? And I
Mhm.
really appreciate that, because it's not every day where you find genuine people, like people at
Yeah.
TU every day. And I
Yeah.
really think that's a really big thing that TU really like hones in on. So, anytime like these coaches have recruits on campus, I try to tell them like, this is the place where you want to kind of start your career. If you're looking for a
Mhm.
place where you want to feel comfortable, where you want to feel like you matter in the classroom and on your respective field, think about going to TU,
Yeah.
So,
I think that the way you put that is really important, and it's well said in the sense that you got to find a place that works for you. And I think a lot of times the choices that young people make about where they're going to participate in athletics in colleges, they get a little distorted, right? It becomes more about the recognition, the prestige, where am I going? What's the name on the front of my shirt? Who's going to like notice me versus like, hey, I have to go live in this place for 4 or 5 years. I need to make a life for myself. And I need to find a family that's going to help me be successful. And that's what you found. It sounds like you found a place where you could be yourself and you have a family around you that supports you as Jennifer, the person, and not Jennifer, the track athlete, who's just the only thing that matters is your time on the track. Because I've certainly heard from other people who are in your shoes right now, athletically, a lot of times they don't always feel like they matter. They feel like the only thing that matters is their performance. And if they're not performing, they feel like they don't matter. And that's hard. That's hard, especially when you're an athlete that's been successful your whole life and now you're in college and now you just feel marginalized because
Right.
of your performance. And that's going to lead to the anxiety and depression that you were talking about a lot of the
Exactly.
times.
Exactly. So, thankfully, like I said, TU, they're really big on making sure that even if you're not on their roster, they're gonna make sure that you're known in their presence, and
Mm,
I really thoroughly enjoy that. So, with the energy that TU has gave me throughout the 3 to 4 years that I've been here, I try to make sure I reciprocate that energy when it comes to my work. I really
hmm
do appreciate, Thomas University just taking a chance on a kid that
hmm
was just 18 years old looking for an opportunity to make something of herself, you know.
Yeah.
So I try my best to give 110% for my job, in the classroom, keeping my GPA up, and just kind of, being a good person for the community and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So
That's awesome. And I can hear it in your voice. Like you take a lot of pride. You've said it, but like I can see it in your face
yeah,
if you're watching this, and I can hear it in your voice that it's just like in a very, very important part of your life. And that, it's something you take a great pride in. So I guess I'm curious, like, so what's the next, the next phase of life look like for you, Jennifer? Like, where do you want to go after college?
I want to stay in the athletic communication world. I love my job. I really love my job. I know I said it already, but I really, really, really love my job. There's never a day where I wake up and like, dang, I got to go to work. I love going to work. It's always an adventure in our
You
office. Like
don't
I
always
love,
hear that.
yeah. So I definitely want to stay in the athletic communication world.
Hmm
Like I said, whatever school that wants to take a chance on me, I'm all for it. I'm not holding myself to like one area, one city, one state. You know, Especially when I went to COSADA, there's so many opportunities out there in the
hmm
world, so many. So, the biggest thing I can do for myself is just network, keep branding myself in the right and professional way. And, hopefully God has a door open for me that I can't see right now, but eventually He'll let me know when He's ready for me to see it.
Yeah, but it also sounds like you've put yourself in a really good position for that door to open. And I think that a lot of times we underestimate our role in that, right? Yeah, there's some things we can't control and we have to have faith that things are going to work out, but you've prepared yourself and put yourself into that position by doing all the right things. And I think that, those opportunities, there's no doubt that they're gonna come. So I guess, as we wrap up, the last question I usually ask everybody is in some form or fashion. If you had to give one piece of advice, I would say to a high school recruit, an athlete who's thinking about competing in college and they're thinking about picking a school, like what would be that piece of advice for them?
Don't give up. I mean, I know it's kind of like the typical answer that you get from most people, but like literally, don't give up. Like, there's been times where my mental health kind of won the battle a couple times, and I
Mhm.
wanted to give up, but it's like I had to kind of find my second wind. I had to really
Mhm.
dig deep and find my second wind, and with the transition that I went through as far as my weight loss, that kind of helped finding my second wind, and that's when
Mhm.
I started seeing a big jump in how I am as a person. So I would just say, don't give up. Like, it's college is not meant to be easy wherever you go, whether it's at a community college, a small NAI school, or a big NCAA school. Do not give up. You got to keep fighting. When things get
Yeah.
tough, you punch back. You
Yeah.
really got to punch back. So
Good. I like that. I think that's important. And you'd be surprised. I don't always hear that on this podcast, and I ask that question a fair amount. I think there's a lot to be said for what you said, which is to say you got to be persistent, right? because it goes back to what you were just talking about, having those doors open. Like sometimes the doors don't open exactly when we want them to open, but they do eventually open if we stick with what we believe in. And that's, I think, really important, because a lot of times it would be easy to give up and just turn around and go in a different direction because things aren't working out the way we want to. But if we believe in ourselves and we believe in what we're doing and you stick with it, things usually work out for the
Right.
best. And it sounds like you've had that experience. So it's been really great to talk to you, and
Of course.
in this format. And I'm really happy for you, and I only wish you well going forward. And thanks
Thank
for
you so
coming on.
much. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jennifer. Take care.
You too. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.